So this is volume 2, the second half of Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. And wow, is Anna an awful person. So the second half mainly follows two couples, Anna and Vronsky, and Kitty and her now husband, Levin. So it starts with Levin and Kitty's wedding. And I mean, it sort of covers the first couple years of their life together, this second half. And it's very real. I keep saying this over and over again, but his writing is so real. He adds in little details that make it so it doesn't feel like fiction. It seems like sort of extraneous details that most works of fiction don't have because they don't add to the plot. Little things like him in the apiary and a bee gets stuck in his beard and he has to take it out, or also when they're at the apiary eating, a bee stuck in the honey, and it describes the guys sort of trying to get the bee out of the honey and put it on the leaf while still talking about stuff that has nothing to do with the bee and the honey and anything at all. It's just little tiny human real details like that. Or like Vronsky's toothache when he's at the train station pacing up and down and just the pain he's feeling. Or the fact that Vronsky's balding and has to like do his hair in a way to hide the baldness. He's so good at these little very human moments, these very human actions and behaviors. Anyway, like I said, this section consists of sort of Levin and Kitty's first couple years of marriage together, and goes through everything that I imagine someone would go through: getting married, having a first child, having their first arguments together, settling down, making a life out of what had been two lives. And he does it in a very human way. All the anxieties and the fears and the thoughts and everything that is expressed through Levin and also Kitty, but mostly through Levin, feels very real. Like the plans for the wedding, he does not care at all about what needs to be done for the wedding. He's like, well, let's just do it. Let's do the wedding. Like, and they're like, well, you have to do this and we have to do that and we have to get this flower from this person and go to this place for the ceremony, and then we move to. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, I don't care. And they're like, what would you like to do for this part? That he's like, yeah, sure, I don't care. Let's just get married. And sort of the anxieties of the wedding and the last minute, not cold feet, but he's like, she doesn't actually love me. She's gonna ruin her life to marry me. I'm gonna have to. You're not supposed to meet the bride on the day of the wedding, but he goes to her and he's like, okay, you could leave me. I know you don't love me. It's like, this is a huge mistake for you. But of course she still does, and they do get married. And then it's really well written, the part where his brother's dying, and this is sort of him coming to terms with mortality for the first time, and he's really shaken. And Kitty, his wife, who also went there with him, she starts to get ill at the same time, and she makes a comment about this. And of course I never even thought about it, but the dying brother kind of like scoffs it off, like, you think you're sick, I'm here dying. And it's horrible. It's a horrible scene. The brother's like in so much pain, and it takes him forever to finally die. But Levin's quite shook by this. But at the sort of the ultimate paragraph where the brother dies, it's revealed that Kitty is sick, in that she's having morning sickness because she is in fact pregnant. And it's this juxtaposition of death with new life that's just so well done, but not in a sort of, it didn't feel like a fictionalized sort of made up thing. It felt like this could have been a real thing. This could have actually happened. And just the coincidence of the timing. And then we go on to Levin's experiences not during the pregnancy, but during the birth. So Kitty wakes him up and is like, hey, it's time. Can you get the midwife? I'm gonna have this baby. And he, of course, like any first time father, freaks out. And he's like, he runs and gets her. He runs to like, go to the store and get some morphia, because it's the 1870s and that's what you do. Well, you need painkillers, right? And that's all they had. So he goes to the shop and he's like, I need the painkillers, like, give me the morphia. And the shopkeeper's like, I can't just give you morphia. He's like, get a note from a doctor. And he's like, I don't have time, my wife's in labor. And eventually he gives it to him, and the guy's like slowly wrapping the bottle up, and he just like snatches it out of his hands and runs out the door, because he's like, my wife's giving birth right now, we have to go. And he rushes to the doctor, and the doctor's asleep, and the doctor's like, not to be awoken, and he ends up having to bribe. He calms himself, and he's like, nope, this is gonna be fine. I need to remain calm. But he loses it again, and bribes the butler or whatever to get into the house. And wakes the doctor up. The doctor's like, yeah, I said I'll come when she's giving birth, so I'll come, but I gotta finish my coffee. And the guy like gets dressed and sits down with his coffee, and Levin's like just shaking in the chair, like, we gotta go. So he finally convinces the guy, like, you will leave this house and come to mine in 15 minutes. Okay, I'll gotta go. And he runs back. And so he's just panicking. And of course, it's a 22-hour labor. Like, there was no rush. And the doctor knew this. Everyone sort of knew this except for Levin, who's going through it for the first time. And it just felt so real. And Kitty screams of pain when she's in labor. And Levin's convinced she's gonna die. And he turns to God for the first time and starts praying constantly and over again, and he's just so afraid. And then she finally gives birth, and she has this little boy, Dmitri, or what's the cute name they call him? Mitya? I think it's Mitya. And again, you think a storybook moment would be he sees his son for the first time, and his wife's gotten over this ideal, and they're all full of love and wonder at this new life, and they're just so happy to this new family starting out. But he has, again, a very real human reaction where on seeing the baby, he's expecting all these feelings, but when they don't come, it's almost the opposite. And he says he feels nothing but pity and revulsion, or repulsion. Not revulsion, repulsion, one of the two. And how he had expected to feel this instant love, but he doesn't. He's kind of shaken by that. Well, I think that's another natural response. It's not that he hates this child of his, it's just, for now, it's just sort of this creature that makes noises. And I know society says we're supposed to immediately love babies. And for the most part, maybe people do, but I guess sometimes it takes people a while to get used to that. So they live happily ever after, for the most part. There is one scene where there is sort of a changeover between the two. So we've been talking about Kitty and Levin, but we also have Vronsky and Anna. And we have the Oblonsky who's going in between the two, because remember Oblonsky's wife, Dolly, is Kitty's sister, but Oblonsky's sister is Anna. So he's sort of the one in between the two. And one night at the club, he's got Levin. They've been drinking a lot, and Oblonsky's like, hey, let's go see my sister and Vronsky. They're in town. And Vronsky and Anna have sort of been cut off from society because she has not gotten a divorce from her husband, Karenin. She's still technically Anna Karenina. So she's been living with Vronsky, and it's a whole thing. So they've sort of been cut off from society. But Oblonsky's like, it's my sister. Come on, let's go see her. And so they go to see her. And Levin's he's a bit drunk, so he's not sure what the right move is. He's like, should I be rude and say, no, I'm not going, because my wife wouldn't like it if I went and saw this fallen woman? But anyways, he ends up going and sort of crushes on Anna, but Anna lays it on thick and purposefully seduces him and reflects back on it like, yeah, I got that young man to like me. Like, I could have anyone fall in love with me, and I'm toying with him for fun. Levin feels she's very beautiful and is very struck by this and is constantly blushing and feels so super guilty. So he goes back to his wife and tells her, and she's sort of devastated that the whole thing happened, but he's like, what was I supposed to do? But that's one of the reasons I think Anna is a horrible person, where she's flirting with Levin, who's newly married and a new father, just because she can, and she's just playing with them. So Anna and Count Vronsky, they've sort of been living here and there. Their situation seems good, financially, even socially. People are coming around and still visiting them, but Anna's starting to kind of lose it. She gave up her son that she claimed to have loved, Cereza, who's living with Karenin. One time when they're in Petersburg, she sort of sneaks in and sees the boy. But other than that, she has this daughter. They also call the daughter Anna or Annie, but she doesn't really love her daughter like she loves Vronsky and Cereza, which does not reflect well on her. She probably should love her daughter, but maybe it's the same situation as Levin and his son, where it takes a while to come around to him. So yeah, in this part she really downwardly spirals and starts fighting with Vronsky over stupid little things, and the fights escalate, and he loves her, but he's in a tough position because he sort of gave up his career, his life, everything for this woman, and she's also given up a lot for him, but she's not happy, and mental illness is clearly developing, but like I said, I still think she's not a great person. She, at one point near the end of the book, considers killing herself to sort of get back at Vronsky. That'll show him. Then he'll realize how much he loves me, and he'll hurt as much as he's hurt me. Which, that sort of thinking, she's just not a great person. And I'm sure there are Anna apologists out there who are like, no, it's her situation and everything she's had to go through. But really, what has she had to go through? Cheating on her husband, giving up her family, her son, for the love of this young dreamboat guy that she then destroys. Like, so things come to a head near the end of the book when she's going crazy. Basically, she doesn't know what she wants. She wants Vronsky to do one thing, and then when he doesn't do it, she argues that you don't love me anymore and you hate me and blah blah blah. Why would you do this? Like, trying to gaslight him and guilt trip him and sort of just messing with him. But she really feels these things. And so he has to go off to his mother to get money for something. And then he's like, okay, we'll go back to the countryside because that's what you want. You don't like it here in Moscow. So she gets what she wants, but then she changes her mind and says, no, I want him back. Make him come back here. Tells the servants to go out and bring him back, but they miss him. So then she gets on the train and goes herself out to the station to try and bring him back. And she's just really messed up at this point. And then she sort of sees the train tracks where there had been a scene way earlier in the book where a man had fallen onto the tracks and been run over and killed. And she thinks, oh, well, I could do that. And then he'll like, this is the second time she's been thinking about killing herself to sort of get Vronsky upset. And so she does. There's like a sort of a moment where she's going to, and then she doesn't, and you think, oh, she's decided not to, because this book has a lot of sort of fake out moments where you think something's going to happen, then it doesn't. But she does. She ends up throwing herself onto the tracks, and her mangled corpse is found by Vronsky, and she achieves what she wants to. She really messes him up. And so the very few final chapters of the book are like 2 months after her death, where there's a war on in the sort of the Turks against the Serbs and Montenegrins in the Balkans, and a whole bunch of volunteers from Russia are going to help their Slavic brothers out. And so Vronsky volunteers as sort of not a suicide, but a kind of a suicide. He's just going out to die because he has nothing left. His daughter, in the grief, was taken by Karenina, even though she's not Karenina's daughter. She's Karenina's wife's daughter. So he's lost his daughter. He's lost his lover, Anna. He's really messed up. So he's going off to die. Remember, he did shoot himself when she was pregnant, thinking that she was going to die. So he's not great either. I wouldn't say he's a victim in all this, because he did cause a lot of her problems by, flirting with her and pulling her away from her husband. And he did admit that his love for her was cooling at times and wasn't as strong as it had been. And maybe, much like he had been messing with Kitty at the start, he seems to like being a bachelor, but likes flirting with people. Maybe that's really not fair either, because he was in love with Anna, and he did give up a lot for her. But yeah, he's really messed up by all this, so he's going off to the war to presumably die. And that's sort of the end of their story. I just want to read the paragraph that depicts Anna's death, because I think it is, the metaphor in it is just wonderful. I've never encountered something like that before. So this is the final sentence, I guess, of that final paragraph of that final chapter. So this she has jumped onto the tracks, and the train has run her over. And it says, the candle, by the light of which she had been reading that book filled with anxieties, deceptions, grief, and evil, flared up with a brighter light, lit up for her all that had been dark before, crackled, began to flicker, and went out forever. So it sort of describes her life as the candle, the light by which she has been reading the book of all these awful, miserable things that she's been thinking about, the depression, the guilt, the upset. Just what a metaphor, that her life, her soul, her being, whatever, is this light by which she's reading these books of guilt and fear and anger, and that light flaring up brilliantly and burning that all away, until it finally flickers and dies. Like that's just beautiful prose. And the final couple chapters, we go back to the Levins, and they're sort of happy. Nothing really happens. They get caught in a rainstorm, and Levin runs off to find Kitty and his their son, who's in the woods. And there's a tree that's struck by lightning, and it falls down into this glade, and it makes it seem like they're in there and they're in mortal danger. The tree could have fallen and killed them, but it turns out they're all fine, and they do all live happily ever after. The last few chapters were quite kind of strange to me, and not as great as the rest of the book. It was a lot of Levin dealing with issues that had been brought up to him when he saw his brother die, that about life and the sort of the meaninglessness of life, because he's agnostic and he sort of has no religion. So to him, he's like, well, life is short and full of sorrow, so what's the point? And it describes how he's not suicidal, but he's thought about the pointlessness of life so much that he's thought about suicide a lot, and he sort of has made sure he doesn't go around with a gun on him just because he's scared of what he might do. So I don't think he's truly suicidal like Anna was, but he does have that weird fear. So this is sort of the end of the book, is him sort of coming to terms with religion and people who have religion as their sort of rock and foundation that they base their morality and then their reason for existence around, and how he doesn't have that. And he sort of does have this epiphany, and he thinks, wow, I figured it out. Life's going to be great now. And then he immediately, once he goes back to start talking with people, he starts fighting and quarreling and upsetting people and saying the wrong thing. And then he sort of has to have another moment where he goes back to that. He's like, anyways, it didn't intrigue me a lot, but he comes to the conclusion that, okay, I've got this all figured out now. I've got the universe and everything figured out. It is about good for goodness sake, and not doing good for a reason or for a consequence or a reward. Just living for living for good, whatever that is. And he realizes that it's not instantly going to make his life easier. He's still going to get upset and fight with people, and there's still going to be lots of problems, but at least he has sort of something. I think, I don't know, it was hard to follow. The philosophy of Levin, usually I could follow and I enjoyed it, but this last part was kind of strange to me. Like, I did like the parts with sort of the labor relations and stuff. Like in the first half, he went and helped work with his peasants on the farm, and he sort of extolled the virtues of a good hard day's work, and he would went mowing with these peasants, and it was such hard work, and he was sweating, and it was hot, and it was exhausting, but he felt so satisfied by the end of the day that he accomplished something. And it's kind of that, because Tolstoy himself was an aristocrat. It's kind of that aristocrat thinking, oh, the working class, they have it so good, it's such a simple life and so enjoyable. But what he doesn't take into account is that, yes, it is very satisfying to sort of physically and mentally exhaust yourself on something and succeed at it and have sort of good results, but doing that because you want to versus doing that because you have to survive, and you have to do that every single day of your life, which is what the peasants and the working class have to go through, is not enjoyable. But anyways, so yeah, that's how it ends. Oblonsky and his wife are still together, even though there's no love between them. There was one scene where Dolly goes and visits Anna and sort of pictures to himself if some young man, much like Vronsky, could come up to her and convince her to run away from Oblonsky. That would be sort of great, because Oblonsky is still cheating on her left, right, and center. Not like Vronsky, who's sort of pulls Anna away, but Oblonsky is just like sleeping with girls here, there, and everywhere, and Dolly kind of suffers for it. And also they have tons of financial problems, and Oblonsky, like, I feel like a lot of people know Oblonsky's in their life, and I feel like also people know a lot of Anna's in their life. Levin's another one I like him because he sort of sees the ridiculousness of society. He doesn't really understand why people do the things they do. Like, there's one scene where they're voting for the, not provincial elections, but yeah, actually I think it is provincial elections. So all the aristos are there, and they're all voting for these people, and all the politicking and the parties, and we have to do this and do that, and manipulate this and that. And he's like, it just boggles his mind. He's like, what's the point? I don't even want to be here. I want to leave. Like, even he's not a total sort of rube, but even in polite company, he'll say the wrong thing, or he doesn't quite get sort of politics or polite society. Or just he's he's a different sort of person, but he's an enjoyable sort of person. Probably the best character in the book. I would say the main character. The main characters are probably Anna Karenina and Konstantin Levin. But that was this titanic 800-page 19th century novel, which again I was really struck by. Like, thinking about 19th century literature, I think of Charles Dickens. This is nothing like Charles Dickens. I guess Russian literature is a lot different than English literature. Fantastic. Again, the plot, it could just be sort of basic soap opera stuff, but it is also, I wouldn't even say soap opera, because soap operas are like over the top, dramatic, bizarre stuff that happens. This is again very real things that happen to people. Getting married, experiencing jealousy, having your first child, having financial problems, questioning existence and sort of religion, cheating on someone, being cheated on by someone, family. Like, there's a sort of the book that I think everyone can relate to in some sort of way, unless you're a hermit living under a rock, which even then, speaking for myself, you can still connect to it. So the plot is basic in that sense, but that is by no means a criticism. And the way it's written in the prose, like I said, is so real and so human. It feels like it could be nonfiction. It could just be an account of someone's, like a collation of multiple diary entries. It really is just the little details and the little very human real things, which I keep using those words and being that to death. So I'm just going to end it there and say that was the final part of Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina.